So you think you know about Dorothea Lange, made famous by her image of Florence Thompson, the migrant mother, made notorious by later claims that the backstory she presented for Florence Thompson was almost entirely fictitious. This video is not specifically about that controversy, but if you follow the thread of this video, you'll see why I believe Lange simply mixed up one woman's story with another woman's photo. More on that later. They say that the experiences of our childhood are what make us, and I think this is certainly true for Lange. As a child, Lange went from a nice, comfortable middle-class start in the New Jersey suburbs. Then, aged 7, she contracted polio, a disease that would affect her for the rest of her life, with her permanent damage to her foot. It seems to have triggered a lifelong fascination with the feet of others. Late at age 10, her father walked out on the family, forcing a move to a poor neighbourhood in New York. Lange started her life as an insider. With the comfort of middle-class life, she became an outsider through physical disability that slowed her down, making it difficult to keep up with the other kids. And then as life got economically difficult, she got to see the world through another set of eyes, those of the poor. Lange managed to graduate high school and obtain a place at Columbia University in New York to study photography under Clarence White, a noted photographer of the day. At this point, she doesn't seem to have actually taken a photograph. More importantly for her career, she got a job helping in the studio of Arnold Geth, an excellent photographer in his own right who had made his name in San Francisco and moved in 1911 to New York, where he shot portraits of the rich, famous and influential. Taking an interest in Lange, Geth gifted her first camera and taught her all of the technical skills she would need. During her time with Geth and studying at Columbia, Lange would hit the streets photographing life as she saw it, no doubt inspired by the wonderful photos of San Francisco's Chinatown that had made her mentor Geth famous. Lange didn't stay in New York for long, settling out west to make her name and settling in San Francisco, where she set up and operated a very successful portrait studio. Undoubtedly this would have been a daunting move for Lange, and it's often made out to be a terrifying leap into the unknown. But it wasn't completely unknown. San Francisco was a town in which her mentor Geth had become famous as a portrait photographer for the children of the well-to-do, and Lange was able to pick up his clients and essentially replace him. I'm sure that in her San Francisco studio, Lange would have honed the skills that are most important to any people photographer. The ability to interact with the subject, the ability to draw an emotion from the subject, and the ability to create an engaged photo from the subject. These skills will serve her well later in her career. It was in San Francisco she made the acquaintance of many great photographers and artists, but none had greater influence on her than her first husband, Maynard Dixon, an artist of some repute for his vivid big sky paintings of the western landscape. With Dixon, Lange would hit the road and experience the country, finding an interest and a confidence that we would see later reflected in her most famous works. As the Depression bit, Lange found herself turning to the streets of San Francisco as she had in New York, photographing life as she saw it, with her perspective that only an outsider can have. She wasn't caught up in it, she was an observer. She was one of the first documentary photographers. Her work on the streets brought her to the attention of a government body, the Resettlement Administration, later the Farm Security Administration, which was mandated to help the poor resettle and establish themselves in new parts of the country to boost the economy. These agencies wanted imagery that would help to convey what they were doing to the American public and raise sympathy and funds for the plight of the poor, desperately trying to find a better life in the West. Teamed up with future husband and economist Paul Taylor, who would document while Lange photographed. And it's in doing this work on behalf of the FSA that the famous migrant mother image was taken. During this period, it's said that Lange shot in excess of 160,000 images on film, and when we look at some of this catalogue and the sequence of images, it's clear that Lange was still putting together her photos as she had in the studio, posing people, exercising compositional skill that she had learned. As you can see, there are several migrant mothers in her collection, posed similarly and living in similar circumstances. In the time frame of the project, these images were captured in moments. Lange didn't tell the migrant mother story until 30 years after its publication. When she took the image, I doubt she knew it would be as iconic as it became, and I suspect the story she told was simply one of the other migrant mothers mismatched to the photograph. We'll never know, but I see no sensible reason Lange would deliberately set out to deceive. A now established documentary photographer, Lange was later hired by the US Army to record the internment of Japanese Americans during World War II. One can only think this was an error of judgment by someone who simply saw Lange as telling the story the FSA wanted well, and therefore would tell the story they wanted well, of how organised they were in rounding up the Japanese threat and how well treated the interred were. However, this is not what they got. When working for the FSA, Lange's vision ability to tell the story of the outsider just happened to coincide with the story the FSA wanted told. When Lange photographed the situation Japanese Americans found themselves in after Pearl Harbor, she was very much on their side. She photographed them with huge dignity in an undignified situation. She showed how American they were, not how Japanese they were. And this, ultimately, is why the US government locked away her photos for over 30 years. This was, I think, her last government project, moving on to teach and eventually in later life return to the studio, and of course being a founder of Aperture magazine. Lange, who died in 1965, had a profound impact on the world through her photography. Her work directly helped to give volume to the voices of those the world did not hear.